Labour MP Camilla Bellich has put forward a bill aimed at stopping employers from enforcing pay secrecy clauses. The bill aims to make these clauses unenforceable, giving workers more freedom to talk about their pay. She argues that this can also help close gender and ethnic pay gaps. While many support the bill, including Labour, National and the Greens, critics like Brooke Van Velden from the ACT Party are concerned it could cause tension in workplace, while Retail New Zealand's Caroline Young also worries about the potential for businesses to lose a competitive edge if pay details are shared across the industry. However, pay equity experts say New Zealand is woefully behind developed countries in terms of pay transparency, with Australia, Britain, Canada, Sweden, Finland and Denmark all passing laws against pay secrecy clauses. Employment relations expert and director of work ethics is Amy Ross, and we're going to discuss this. She joins me now. Good afternoon, Amy.
Kia ora, Leah.
Thank you for your time today, Amy. Do you believe that employees should have the right to discuss their pay freely?
Absolutely, I do. I think it's an integral component to being able to understand pay well and being able to identify inequality in the workplace.
You yourself had a confidentiality clause, didn't you, baked into an employment agreement in the past. How did that affect you at the time?
Well, it immediately made me think, well, what have they got to hide here? Like, why would I not be able to talk about it? Is there something nefarious going on? It immediately brings the distrust and suspicion into play, even if that's not warranted. So I think that it is in everyone's interest that we can just see clearly what pay is and what the criteria are for development and progression. So if Brooke Van Velden wants, for example, employers to be able to change pay based on output, then surely we need to know what the measure of output is so we can meet those expectations. And we need to be able to say, oh, well, George is getting 10,000 more than me because he is outputting X more. And if that's all transparent, then I can theoretically work harder and output more and get the same.
Yeah, interesting. I wanted to ask you about that. The critics that argue pay transparency would lead to tension in the workplace. I mean, what do you say to that?
I think that the only tension is created where people see unfairness or injustice, because New Zealanders really value fairness. And so I think if you're saying there'll be tension, it's because people will be finding out that there's things that are going on that aren't right. And I think that we need to fix those things. We need to shine sunlight on them and actually get our workplaces fair and equitable. We have a long-standing gender and ethnic pay gap that nobody wants. Nobody's out there saying we want this. So we need to do things differently in order to really challenge that.
In your opinion, why do you think as a country we have lagged behind many other countries? I mean, I mentioned quite a few, but, you know, Australia, Britain, Canada. Why have we kind of held back? Is this because it's taken an MP, obviously, to put the spotlight on it? Businesses have just been happy to keep going the way they're going. What do you think it is?
I think there's probably a lot of things in there. I think there's a bit of a cultural thing of we don't sort of talk about those things. We keep our pay private. But I think what we have to remember is this doesn't force you to say anything to anyone. All it does is protect you from backlash from your employer if you choose to do so. So I think that's a really important thing this bill turns on, is it absolutely doesn't say you must go around saying what your pay is to everybody. It just gives you protection from any repercussion.
I'm making this much, yes. Yeah.
And I think that we also need to start doing things differently and just thinking about pay a bit differently if we want different results, which I think we all do.
Hey, well, that's interesting. Can you explain that, Amy? Was thinking about remuneration differently?
Well, I think that we need to really think about work being valued based on the skills, responsibility, effort and experience that is required. That's actually the legal way that you value work. The Equal Pay Act sets out how you assess the value of work, and rather than kind of feeling like it's some status thing or how well you can negotiate, or just arbitrary decisions of managers, because those things are things which lead to fundamental unjust and unsettled workplaces. And I think if we really focus, that is what we want. We want to reward skill, responsibility, effort and experience.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So skill, experience. What else did you mention?
Responsibility,
Yeah.
and the
Is
conditions that you're working in.
yeah. Is that not already kind of taken into factor by your employer? Should it not?
Well, you would think it would be, but I
Mm,
think that what's happened, and particularly pay secrecy allows this to occur, is
mm,
that employers will pay what they think they can get away with paying. And if
sure.
you don't know and aren't able to discuss with your colleagues what the going rate is for the kind of level of skill that you're bringing, you're in a real disadvantaged position from being able to say, actually, my skills are worth this. This is what I'm bringing, and this is
Mm.
what I should be remunerated.
Caroline Young from Retail New Zealand, Amy, who she's quite a regular on the show, and I respect this quite a lot, and she does worry about the potential for businesses to lose a competitive edge. So if pay details were shared across an industry, is that a fair concern?
Well, I mean, I'd have to dig into that a little bit more, but I
Mm,
would like to say that I don't want to see our country and our businesses compete on the race to the bottom for wages, like who can pay their workers the cheapest and kind of have that as a competitive advantage.
mm,
Um, so I would really like us to step away from that. And if you are able to attract workers based on being a really fantastic workplace that is flexible, that looks after its workers, that respects them, and remunerates them fairly for their skill, responsibility, and effort, then I think that is your competitive advantage right there. Being open, being transparent, being somewhere that people want to work. And I think a lot of research bears that out. That's how you keep good workers. People
mm.
don't leave. They leave bad managers and bad employment environments. That's why there's turnover. Mm.
The EU, I've seen, and you'll know this, have been implementing a suite of pay transparency measures introduced,
That's right.
including making it compulsory for employers to inform job seekers about salary and pay range ahead of interviews. Would you like to see that here?
Absolutely.
Mm,
Because if you're applying for a job, it can be, as everybody knows, quite a big process to go through applying and writing up your CV and doing an interview, and it takes a
mm,
lot of effort. And if you then get to the end of that and they're offering absolute minimum wage, which you can't sustain your household on, then you've wasted all that time and effort. People need to know up front, what am I offering? It's like if I was to send my CV in with just a couple of headlines and I say, oh, don't
mm,
worry, my skills are awesome. They'll tell you
yeah,
about it once you give me the job.